if I'm about to ask somebody for $150,000 for this service, do I look like 7,000 people have already paid me $150,000 and had an amazing result? Or do I look like I'm now the first person that's going to pay you $150,000 and it may or may not work out? It's never really about the clothes. It's only about what happens to your self identity when you show up feeling a certain way, and clothing just happens to be a very fast tool to get you there.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to a new episode of the Happy Productive Podcast. I had to actually click the record button, you guys, because me and Lee were just like chatting offline and we're like talking horses. And if I didn't click record, we were never going to start because we were just going to sit and talk about horses all day. Welcome, Lee, to my show today. How are you?
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
Yes, I'm so excited to have you. And you guys, I was telling Lee, so Lee Hayward is our guest today. She's a brand consultant and the founder of the Prosperous Image, a consulting firm that helps entrepreneurs up-level their image so that they can make more money. And I was telling Lee today that I am so weak in this area. So I'm so excited to jump in, have this conversation, because I know that this is an area that I for sure need help in. So, you guys, Lee is also the author of the best-selling book, Strategically Suited, Your Secret Edge to Grow Sales and Get New Clients. And it also talks about how to grow your sales and obviously get new clients. So welcome to the show, Lee.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So tell us just a little bit about you, your story. How did you get to this place to be doing this work that you're doing today?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, my favorite part about being an entrepreneur is hearing everyone's stories, because at least for me, this is not where I thought I would end up, but it's exactly where I should be. So it literally started in fourth grade, where I had a friend who was switching to a new school and she was nervous about it. And I was like, oh, I have this solution. We're going to make a whole week's worth of outfits. I'm going to hang them in your closet on those like old school hangers with the paper on them. I even like wrote what was on there in case like something fell off. Like we had to have an insurance policy on that. And I was like, this is the ticket. Like, you'll feel good. Everyone will love you. You'll be cool. And the school year will be great. Like, easy peasy. And so I've always just sort of been interested in what people wear and how people present themselves. And when I graduated from college, I actually ended up with a job as an equestrian merchandiser and then sales rep. So I worked for a company that you're probably very familiar with called Ariat International, which is kind of like the Nike of the equestrian industry.
Right.
And it was so much fun because it was a brand that required no work to sell because everyone clamored for the product. And so in my time there, I started putting all these pieces together to realize how much an image helps you, A, just get in the door, and then B, when that image is maintained and has a very consistent brand like identity in the customer's mind, like how easy it is to grow sales. And so I ended up taking that and desiring to have more of a life and not be on the road, and was like, I think I'm going to do my own thing. And I started a personal styling company, and it was all about dressing the outside of people. And I loved it. And I thought it was fun. And there was this moment where I was like, this is not enough. This is not what it's about. Your image is about sort of the totality of who you are. And so you have to reverse engineer sort of who you are from the inside and make sure the outside matches. And as entrepreneurs, it's one of our most strategic marketing tools. And so the business just evolved into sort of a larger brand company, but everything always begins with the personal brand of the entrepreneur, because that's where results are being driven from.
Oh my gosh, this is so great. So everyone who's listening, who struggles with their brand image, you're going to love this show today, because I'm going to put myself out there and we're going to just start at the beginning. So Lee, this is something I have always struggled with. And it's so funny because my daughter, my youngest daughter, is starting her sophomore year of high school. And she's like, Mom, I need some back to school clothes. I'm like, okay, fine. So we go shopping. She goes out to the rack. She comes back, and in her hands, she has like 3 pairs of sweatpants and 3 sweatshirts. And I was like, You are me. My mother used to get so angry with me because I would go to school with sweatpants that had a hole in them and a sweatshirt and my hair in a ponytail because I just didn't care. And she would get so angry that I wasn't like a girly girl and I wasn't wearing all this makeup and all this stuff. And my oldest is a girly girl and she tries to help me, but my youngest, I was like, man, you are just like me. Like, but I'm not going to dog you because I can't say anything because I went to high school in sweatpants the whole time too. So, where does a person start who is like, I know that this is something I could definitely improve upon, but I don't have any idea where to start. So I know there's people that are going to resonate with this. So where do you start when you're just like, I know I need to elevate my brand image, but I don't know where to even begin?
Yeah, that's a great question. And what I love to make sure that people really remember in this moment of where do I start is, as an entrepreneur, we get to create the world that we live in. And that may have not been the case for most of our lives, right? We were living in someone else's world, in your parents' world, what you do and don't, do and don't have to do, especially when it comes to getting dressed. And so I remind people that we've never had any formal indoctrination about like, here, this is most strategic for you, both for like your body, your personality, your career, getting people to say, oh, they are going to be the one that helps me. So everyone sort of starts from like, what should I do? And there's one question that you ask yourself, and it's kind of the opposite question than most people would think, because it's this, it's how do you want to feel? And so I
Mm,
never start with how do you want to look, because how do you want to look just evolves from how do you want to feel. And,
mhm.
to your point about your daughter wearing sweatpants and whatnot, which number one, that's a huge trend right now. So she's on trend, following in your footsteps.
I'll
You're
tell her
trend
you're on
family.
trend. I heard it from an authority today. You are on trend.
That's
So
right.
good
That's
job.
right. But here's the thing, like everyone wants to have this brand image that attracts the client that they want, but at the end of the day, they also want to be comfortable. So typically the first word that people tell me when I say, how do you want to feel? Is they say,
Yeah.
I want to feel comfortable. And then
Yes.
I say, that's fantastic. We all want to feel comfortable, but comfort is a given. So I believe that if you've curated an image that's really strategic for you in terms of who you are and for the result that you want from your business, you're going to be comfortable. And here's the other one that's a given, you're going to be confident. So
Mm.
I expect those two things to be a given. It's kind of like when I go to the dentist, I expect my teeth are going to be clean when I leave. Like that's just sort of the given. That's why I'm there. Now, the way that that happens, there's many different ways that that can happen. But I encourage people to realize like you could totally have that and all the adjectives that you would use to answer that question.
Oh, I love that so much. And that when I think about that question, I'm like, "Oh, it makes me go to a whole deeper level because so often when you're in those, fancy clothes, they're not comfortable." And you nailed it. Like the first thing I think is I want to be comfortable. Like that's 100%. But when you do wear nicer things and nicer fabrics and things like that, like it does give you confidence. It is amazing that when you're in a really nice outfit, like it does change your energy, how you show up. It really is a powerful thing. Now so I'm gonna stay on this track because then I want to ask you another question. So if if comfort and confidence are a given, so then that next question is now how do you want to feel? Right? We come back to that original question.
Yeah. And
Mm,
I encourage people to answer this from the vision of where they're going. So if you have a trajectory for your business to be at $10 million in 2 years,
mhm.
don't build a wardrobe. Don't build an image that works for you right now. Build an image that is aligned with whatever that $10 million business looks like, whatever it looks like for you as the leader of that business. And that's kind of the mistake that people make. Like they're like, well, look, I did some things. This is perfect. But then they find that 6 months from now, they've grown. Like we're entrepreneurs. This is the goal, right? Constant evolution and constant transformation, that it's not aligned yet. So what you're really asking yourself is, how do I want to feel? And think about it from the perspective of where you're going. I had an example actually just this week where we were talking about sort of like, what I am not. And we were doing it from the perspective of like their current company, but their current company isn't actually what it's going to look like in 5 years. And so then I
Yeah.
said, well, if you were the number one blah, blah, blah company in the world, how would you want to feel when you stood on the stage and say, I'm this person from this company? And the words were completely different because they were actually the sort of authentic part of who they were that was sort of buried down. But that's because, they knew that's where they were going.
Oh, I love that so much. Go out into that future vision of yourself, because for me that is a little bit easier to see, like, oh, well, when I'm here, of course, like I would have this all figured out, and to start there. I love that. So, so cool. Now, one of the things that you mentioned were like, my company's going to be in this different place. So maybe today it's not a $10 million company, but maybe, in 5 years, it absolutely will be. So I know that you talk a lot about like when you have a prosperous image that will actually help you to attract those sales. And I know there's some people now that are just like I'm struggling to make sales, much less what am I wearing. So talk to us a little bit about this idea that your image can actually help to bring in more of those sales.
Yeah, I mean, it's why my company evolved from this sort of like small, this is fun styling company to now this branding firm, because I started realizing, wow, it is really fun to tie a financial result to the concept of image. And typically, image can get like the word image can have sort of a bad rap sometimes, right?
Yeah.
Because we apply the word image to the word judgment. And here's the thing. Everyone has an image and everyone is always being judged. And it's actually like in our core DNA for safety, right? Like you're walking down the street and you see something that makes you uncomfortable, you cross the street. Like it doesn't have to be dramatic, but you say, I have just judged that that might be something I don't want to be a part of, and I cross the street. So the
Mhm.
same thing is happening for our customer when we are in front of them. And it happens in the totality of our business image. So whether it's us as the entrepreneur selling what we do, whether it's our team selling what we do, or whether it's actually like the physical space of the business selling what we do. I'll give you a great example. I had an appointment for one of my children recently with a doctor, and we walked in and I was like, this office is like grandma's house with a weird smell, and it was really dark. And like I already knew, and I knew that this child was, comes out of me, so she's very similar. I knew, I was like, she's gonna have to work really hard to sell us, because there's no way we are coming here on a regular basis simply because of the environment. Like the environment actually negated the image that I originally had of her. And
Yeah.
so it's the alignment of the totality of the image that makes a customer say, all right, I believe what they are saying, what I see out there from the marketing perspective is true. And then when you're able to let them have sort of this very consistent experience that is aligned with that identity and image that they already had in their mind, you start to create loyalty, and you start to create this sort of just in the mind of the consumer, like, I am in the right place.
And with that, I love that so much. And so, are there ways that we can actually dress to like really connect, really engage with our ideal client, like that audience, though our communities? Like, is there a way that we can actually have that image really align in a way that it will even attract more of our ideal client into our communities?
Yeah, absolutely. And it goes back to sort of our our question. Here's the question that will sort of show you the solution to that, which I believe that every day when we are creating an image, especially from when we're getting dressed, we're dressing for two people. And the first is ourselves, always ourselves. If you're not putting forth this like authentic presence, you are literally propelling people away because we as humans are picking up on that. Something's off, something's off, something's off. And you don't want to buy from somebody where something is off. So you're always, number one, dressing for yourself. But number two, you're dressing for your ideal client. And I want to be very clear about this, is that we're not like putting ourselves in some, whatever to make someone else like us. We are putting ourselves in an image that makes other people feel confident in us. And so that's how you start to think about it. Like, if I'm about to ask somebody for $150,000 for this service, do I look like 7,000 people have already paid me $150,000 and had an amazing result? Or do I look like I'm now the first person that's going to pay you $150,000 and it may or may not work out? Right? This is what's happening in the client's mind. They're constantly like, is this where I should go? Is this where I should be? Is this where I should put my money? And so all you're doing from an image perspective is just letting people subconsciously say, yep, I'm here. I'm in the right place. This person is going to increase my life.
Oh, I love this so much. And so when it's really got me thinking so much, and I'm sure our listeners as well. And so when you start to get into a place where you're like, okay, I'm going to up level or change my business image, are there like some essential pieces of like what are like some of the essentials of when you're really ready to kind of like change your business image so that you can grow your business, right? With the intention of, all right, I'm going to up level my business image because I'm up leveling my business. I think we all get growing the business, but to up level that brand image and our own image to grow the business, like what are some of those essentials that everybody needs to know to get started?
I mean, we can answer that question from a couple of different spots of the brand, but let's take sort of like us as the leader and the entrepreneur for a second. I mean, it sounds silly, but you just show up in this new way that is now aligned. And a couple of things happen and people start to be like, oh gosh. People say, oh, look at you. Or, oh, makeover. Did you hire a stylist? Or, like it creates comments that make people be like, oh, is this right? And you kind of have to just know that that's coming, because this is the interesting thing about compliments. I found in the beginning of my career, I would stand in people's closets and they would like hold something and I'd be like, okay, like, what's the deal with this shirt, whatever. And they'd be like, oh, I get compliments every time I wear that. And the thing about compliments is it typically has nothing to do with you. It's because the person that sees the thing likes it for themselves. And then we adopt this like inner thing about like how this makes us so amazing, but it actually has nothing to do with us. So I sort of digress on my compliment train. But it's funny if you think about it. Think about the last time you gave somebody a compliment. Even if it was like, you look amazing today. It was, it's because you notice that and you value that within somebody because it's your value and you want to share that with them in terms of, you look amazing. Anyway, so the biggest thing is just making the decision that you are going to be aligned with the place in which you are going. I find all the time there's this actually in the book, in this strategically suited book, there's a chapter that talks about the curse of 1 million. And over and over, I would see people who were climbing to get to the 7-figure mark, climbing, doing it. And you would watch this trajectory of like, they were like put together, everything was going fine. And then it wasn't quite as put together. And if you really got deep into that, they were like waiting for this moment where they hit this mark that they've been talking about for so long. And that was going to be the line that made it like, okay to go out and like really, truly show up as you're meant to be. And I just say like, don't fall in that trap. Don't wait. The time is like right now. And there's so many stories of like how like in my own business, income has tripled. I remember one time a mentor said to me, why do you dress the way you do? And I was like prepared. I had all the adjectives. I had all the answers. Like I was ready. And one of the words that I used was approachable. I want to be approachable is what I said. I want to be approachable so that other clients feel comfortable and want to hire me. And he said
Oh,
this to me:
nice.
would you dress the same way if your business was already successful? This was in the beginning of my career. And I was like, oh, no, no way. I would dress more badass. I would be like way more like funky. And he was like, you do that now. And so
Oh, great advice.
that was like, all right, we do it now.
Oh, I love this. This is so good. Okay, you are getting me thinking. And so okay, so I literally have an event in 2 weeks. And we're doing the Scaling Smart Clinic. We're bringing in clients and some other entrepreneurs, and I'm going to be teaching. And I love our in-person events so much. So we do 2 retreats a year, and we've just added 2 weekend events this year. And this is an area that I'm just like, the way that I want to show up, well, is like in yoga pants with my hair up, because literally I'm just like, let's get to work, y'all. And that's what I'm there for, truly, is to serve my clients. Like, and I even say we're on Zoom so much, I'm just like, look, I don't care how you show up. I don't care if your hair's done. I don't care if your makeup's on. All I care is that you show up and let's get to work and let's figure out what we've got to do, because I love being in the trenches. I love helping my clients get all these great results. But, this is an event, and I do feel like some pressure to dress appropriately. And you nailed it with just like, I do want my clients, obviously, and the ones that know me, they already know, but like to have confidence that, they're in good hands, especially as we dive in. Yeah, we're going to do tactical things on the business, but we're going to do some emotional work, and we're going to do some clearing of some blocks, and we're going to do some really deep stuff. And that's how I know they're going to get results, is if we do some of that deep work. So how do you kind of balance, like, how do you balance that in a brand image of, you know, dressing the part, but then also being able to do some of this like deep work? I don't know. That's where I get a little bit hung up.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question because, like what, we're gonna just show up in a prom dress everywhere we go because we decided we want to like look good, right? Like the reality of that doesn't work, and that actually negates what you're trying to do. So here's the way you really think about it, especially in live events. So people hire us as entrepreneurs because they believe that they will help us transform something within their life. They believe they will help us increase something within their life. And so it's our job as the entrepreneur leading anyone else, whether it's from stage, on Zoom, walking around the street, to present ourselves one step, a minimum, I'm going to say minimum, a minimum of one step above where that person is. And this is not about, yay, I'm better than you, I know more than you, or
Right.
dress better than you, I have more money than you. It has nothing to do with that. It has to do with this. If anybody has ever read Wallace Wattles' book, Science of Getting Rich, he talks about the concept of the impression of increase. So we buy based on thinking someone will give us that impression of increase. And if someone looks exactly like we do, if they are at our same level,
Right.
how are they going to bring that to us? And so
Right.
I always encourage people, especially when you're standing on stage and when you're running an event, that you think about how can you present yourself in a way that is just a tiny bit higher than the group that you are leading, so that you can offer them the ability to step into transformation. And you can do that in yoga pants, right? Like if it's a yoga retreat, it looks pretty ridiculous not to be in the garb of the retreat, right? But
Yeah.
it would come down to like, all right, so I'm going to be very intentional about every single detail of how everything ties together, how the things look. If I was, if I had a client who was, let's use this yoga retreat example, like running a yoga retreat for clients, I would say, like, how can we have you in like a finishing piece, like a little jacket that you're probably going to take off, but when you walk into the room or when somebody greets you for the first time, you're in sort of the third piece that makes everything look tied together. And it's sometimes just that tiny detail that helps you maintain that impression of increase. And that's the real key.
Oh, I love this so much. So, first step is to hire Lee to help you
Yeah,
figure it all
obviously.
out. And then from there, like what do you I have hired, and actually this is probably a good one too. I have hired stylists in the past, and all lovely human beings, but they put me in clothes that I didn't feel comfortable in and I didn't feel good in, and they're hanging in the closet. I've worn them once. I'm never going back again. And so if you've hired a stylist in the past, like, and it hasn't worked out, like, how do you kind of what's your advice? What's your advice for finding like the right person that can really help you up level your brand image, especially if you've maybe been burned in the past or maybe it hasn't worked out the way you'd hoped would work out?
Yeah, I mean, and hiring a stylist is such an interesting practice as a business owner because number one, you are hopefully finding someone. Here's what I believe. I believe that someone that is good at helping you uplevel a personal brand is genius at helping you hold the vision for where you are going. That is my superpower. And that is my superpower above being able to dress people. Now I'm also very good at that, but I believe that the true service that I'm providing to people, and it's aligned to sort of my own why of being here on the planet, is like helping you hold the vision for that bigger place of what you're here for. And that is all about, stepping into your potential and that kind of thing. And so finding someone who hears that, understands that, understands both sides of the my my thought process of that you're dressing for two people. Number one, yourself, number two, the client that you are after. And then can help you push yourself to see yourself in a new way, but at the same time also feel like, wow, that's also authentic, but I had no idea. I remember we had a woman come to a retreat, and you know, most of the women walking out of these personal branding retreats are completely different people. And it was so clear what she was doing wasn't quite right. And what we were putting her in, like, gave her all the power and everything necessary for the particular client that she was going for. But she didn't feel it on the inside. Like, she was not there yet. And so you couldn't just say, well, too bad, that's what looks good and this is what's right for the client, because it would negate the whole process. So we had to back it down and find a happy medium to figure out where she could like also feel that power, but then also feel like herself. Fast forward 5 years from there, she's totally in exactly what we had put her in, because she was able to grow into it. And
Yeah.
that's totally fine. So I really think it's just finding the person that can really help you hold yourself accountable to your highest potential. And that's what I genuinely care about. It's never really about the clothes. It's only about what happens to your self identity when you show up feeling a certain way. And clothing just happens to be a very fast tool to get you there.
Got it, got it. And so it really sounds like, so is it when we talk about hiring a stylist versus elevating our brand image, it feels like what you're talking about is a little bit bigger picture than just hiring a stylist and making it about the clothes. Am I on track there?
You are. So and the evolution of my company sort of helped me like really experience this. In the beginning, it was all about just the makeover of the person. And I started realizing that you would do all this work and you would spend all this money and time on new clothes and, this whole new look, but it didn't totally matter because it would only help in these sectors of your business where people only saw you. They didn't see your team. They didn't come into your office and see it was a hot mess. They didn't get on Zoom with you and feel like it was a hot mess. And so you have to start to think about your image from this perspective of a totality of what the entire thing is saying. And that's really
Yeah.
what we do at the Prosperous Image. Like, it always starts with you, because you are driving every result you get. And the way you think about yourself is mirroring back to you. So without doing the work on yourself first, you're also not going to get this like the full growth trajectory. But once you have that clarity, then you start to notice how, all right, I've done this work on myself. Now I can watch how I can lead my team to a better result. If you have a team, they are showing up no matter what, one step below you because you are setting the standard of what is on brand. And then they're like, well, this is what my boss looks like, so I can wear this. And there's
Yeah.
all these little things where, like, when you start to up level your own brand image and then you look at the image of the company from this total place of how do I prosper and make everything
Yeah.
aligned, it creates this sort of growth fuel that we call it, because it eliminates those moments in the customer's mind of, I thought they were this, but I just experienced this. And so now I'm confused and less excited to give you my money.
Yeah. So good, Lee. You are so inspiring me right now. I know we're almost out of time, but I just have to ask one more quick question. So, what do you say to, and this wouldn't apply to men quite as much, but as an older woman, I've just gone through menopause and I'm on the flip side of it. All is good, except having gained weight through menopause that I have not been able to get off of my body. And so I often find myself, and I know there's a lot of women who are going through this right now. And so I'm going to put myself out there where I find myself like wanting to more like disappear in my clothes because it's just like it's not the body that I've had for so many years. And it's just like I'm still kind of trying to figure out and navigate this kind of new version of my body. And so I find myself being like, when I lose the weight, then I'll work, then I'll invest in new clothes. And so I know there's some other women who are listening right now. And so what is your message for them when you're just putting it off, like, putting it off and putting it off and waiting for that perfect moment to invest in yourself, to invest in your brand image?
Yeah, it's such a great. I'm so glad that you brought this up because this happens all the time to all of us. So, number one, I think one of the coolest parts about working with a branding expert like myself is if somebody's doing a good job, they are teaching you how to dress your specific body. And the reason that matters is because when there are times in your life where you're not just over the moon about certain things, or certain things look different than maybe they did before, there are some wardrobe items that you're like, whoa, I am back on track. And there are other wardrobe items that you maybe were used to wearing all the time before that do not work anymore. It's all about sort of the math of proportions. And so learning that is exceptionally powerful. And then I go back to, it's challenging because we get in our own way in this particular place, but you have to make yourself stand in the vision of where you're going and look at the $10 million version of you. And is she sitting there being sad about her specific body, or did she do something about it? Or did she find the clothes that were right? And I know that sounds like harsh and I don't mean it to be, but that's why, like, really owning and holding that bigger vision matters so much, because it allows us to get out of our own way and realize, like, okay, this is fine. We are going to figure out how to do this in a way that makes us feel good. And then lastly, they're just little tricks. Like, you mentioned it before, like certain fabrics. Like, I'm wearing silk today. Like, silk feels completely different than something else. Wearing clothes that are too tight because you don't want to go buy the new clothes remind you all day long that you are where you
Yeah.
don't want to be. And so
Yeah.
you can build just a small little capsule wardrobe that allows you to feel good every day. That's what I want for everyone. And you don't have to go, hog wild buying all new things, but, like, be really strategic about it in terms of, like, where are you actually going every week? What do you really need? And sort of reverse engineer it from there. Because if you can actually feel good in your own body, even if it's small moments throughout the day, you're going to make massively better decisions.
Mm. Oh, I love it. So, so good. Lee, tell everybody a little bit about your book. And I know everybody right now is like, okay, where do I go to hire her? So tell everybody where they can find your book. Tell everybody where they can go to find you.
Absolutely. So I have a few books, but the one that's very relevant to this is this Strategically Suited book. And it's all about, you did ask, like, where do you start? This is a great place to start because there's formulas in here. It makes you do some of the exercises that we talked about. And it's on Amazon Audible, and it's so little that you can listen or read super fast, which was on purpose because we don't need to sit around. We just need to go do the things. So I highly recommend that book. It's on Amazon. And then you can find me on Instagram, Prosperous Image, or on my own website, prosperousimage.com. And anyone who is, interested in doing that up level, everything starts with just a conversation because everybody's business is different. And from that conversation, we really analyze, like, here's the vision of where you want to go. Here's where you are. What can we do to close that gap so that journey happens faster, more fun, looks more amazing, all the things.
Oh, I love it so much. Thank you, Lee. Thank you, really, for being here with me today, helping me out personally, and in that, hopefully helping all of our listeners as well. Such an important topic, and I love all of it. So great. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Well, thank you for having me. It was so wonderful to be here.
Awesome. All right, you guys. Now, it doesn't matter if you sit and you listen to the show and then you do nothing about it. So take one action from today's show. Go buy Lee's book, reach out, think about that future you. Just take one action. When you take an action and then you actually do something, that is how you're going to get the result. So thank you for being here with me today, everybody. That's it for today's show. Get out there and have a happy, productive day, y'all. Bye.